Good morning. We're returning to our fourth fellow for her capstone presentation, and something a little different from Morgan King called Tap into Water, Community Empowerment Through Water Access.
Thank you. So thank you, Anne. As she said, my name is Morgan King, and my capstone project is called Tap into Water. It deals with community empowerment through water access. So to give you a little idea of what I'll be talking about today, here's my roadmap. I'm going to begin with my story so you have a little background on why this issue is relevant to me. I'm going to introduce why it matters, the problem, my solution for the problem, my mission, vision, long-term, short-term outcomes, my actual action plan with a timeline, and then how I define success in addressing this issue. So I'm from Charleston, West Virginia. I was born and raised a mountaineer. I've lived there my entire life. Montani semper liberi is Latin for mountaineers are always free. This is my state motto. I was always encouraged at a young age to live my life by this saying. I interpreted being free as my liberty to learn and pursue anything I chose. And I took this quite literally growing up. In high school, I was involved in everything from athletics to the arts to all sorts of academics. And I realized that I didn't really have a true identity because I never really knew where I fit in because I was involved in so many different things. So as college fast approached, I didn't really know where I fit in because I had this idea that university life was where you chose one topic and focused yourself only on that. And I was really worried about how do I choose just one passion to follow for the rest of my life. So my solution to this was I realized that my indecisiveness was actually a strength, and I didn't have to choose just one thing. I could pursue as many passions as I chose and intertwine them as I wished. So I realized my desire for a balanced education in the social and technical sciences could be achieved, particularly at my university, West Virginia University. By pursuing a degree in civil and environmental engineering with minors in Spanish, international studies, and dance, I allowed myself to have a balanced education by allowing myself to intuitively and creatively solve problems. This past summer, a year ago, I interned at the Office of Environmental Health Services, where I spoke with water operators all over the state. And my background in my education at West Virginia University truly prepared me for this, and I was shocked at what I learned from these water operators. Clean water is still unavailable to many communities within my state, and it was shocking. I was so surprised to learn this. Furthermore, at my internship, I realized that STEM policy can only truly be implemented if you have an understanding of the technical side. So if a policymaker wants to implement a science-based action, there needs to be a technical understanding. And I truly became interested in public policy and how that can influence communities. So as we know now, water is an issue in West Virginia. And water is truly a universal issue. It's the foundation for health, sustainable economies, and equality. So it's the foundation for starting any community, for development or anything. And often this topic is addressed solely in international development. People don't realize that it exists in the United States. Until this past year in the media with the Flip Michigan crisis, few realized its presence here, and particularly in my state of West Virginia. In 2 cases has my state been featured in the news frequently, and it was due to 2 crises that did relate significantly to water. It was that of the 2014 water crisis and the 2016 floods. My senior year of high school, it was January, and an MCHM, that's a chemical that treats coal, spilled and leaked into the Elk River. This is the source of water for about 14 counties around the state capital of Charleston, West Virginia. Schools were shut down for nearly a month because there was not access in all parts of the counties. I didn't have water for about a week because I live near a hospital, so I got it quicker, but unfortunately many communities still didn't have water for a month. And even today, there are individuals who see that they can't even drink the water still because there's this distrust in the government and the water treatment facilities, so they still buy bottled water, even though the water is safe today. Just this past month, you may have seen in the news, about some serious flooding that's impacted West Virginia. And while this has destroyed communities and destroyed some of my friends' actual childhood homes, there's actually been a serious impact on the water systems. While water systems were being shut down during this time of like flooding, some of the communities where they had wells that were closed, they opened them back up, and they didn't realize that contaminated water was filled in these wells. So there was this complete miscommunication on how to treat that and how to use their well water as a backup source. So this takes me to my problem. So as we know, water is not available as a clean source in all communities, and there is this misunderstanding of that it exists among these communities where it's affected. So we can see this on 3 levels, because originally most people would think, oh, the source of water contamination is through just contaminating the water, through the leak I said in the West Virginia water crisis. So that's true. In West Virginia, there's mountaintop removal mining, there's coal ash, and there is hydraulic fracturing, which is more commonly known as fracking. These leakages and drainages impact the groundwater, the public health, and the environment seriously, and they're a serious threat. However, once these threats occur and contaminate the water, it is up to the stakeholders. It is their responsibility, it's the stakeholders' responsibility to manage that water and make it clean for the constituents. So I realized that the true problem in water treatment is actually on 3 levels. It's an interconnected miscommunication of 3 levels. It is that of the water utility, the government, and the public. So to truly understand it, I'm going to give you a little idea of where the problem resides within each topic. Water utilities in the United States can either be public or private. Interestingly enough, private water utilities are not regulated by EPA standards. It is up to the water operator to manage that. Now, resources are available, and if they reach out, and the EPA often reaches out to these communities, it's there. However, there's no, I guess, accountability available, because over 15 million U.S. households rely solely on private household wells for drinking water, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. This is shocking. Even further, public water suppliers that exist, at least in West Virginia, are regulated by the state. However, in some extreme cases in rural communities, there is little to no internet access. And even further, there is one case that I learned about at my internship last summer where the water operator is illiterate and does not understand the violations that are being sent to him, so he does not act upon these violations to treat that community's water. So I sort of touched on the government side of things with the utility, given how intertwined this issue is on all levels. This lack of accountability for private water suppliers is definitely a form of miscommunication within the state government. However, on the public side of things, there is a serious sense of distrust. Any sort of interference of the government is seen as bad by the public. So, and often in these very small communities where the water is contaminated, they would much rather have contaminated, dirty water flow into their house at no cost at all than to have a larger water operating company come in, take over that small utility, and charge money for it. So, to further identify the problem, as a sort of bottom-up approach, looking at the public. A Gallup poll questioned West Virginians to see, in the city where you live, is it easy or not easy to get access to safe water? While a clear majority said it was easy at 90%, it is appalling that 10% of West Virginians do not find it easy to get access to safe water, particularly in a developed country like the United States. Furthermore, another Gallup poll questioned West Virginians on what the highest level of education they had completed is. 11% have a college degree, 10% have postgraduate degree. So as a result, 21% of West Virginians have a college degree or higher. That is about 1 in 5 West Virginians, which is also shocking. An even smaller percentage of those individuals have a degree in STEM, and more often than not, those students in West Virginia leave the state to pursue other career opportunities. So we aren't even retaining these individuals that could come in and fix the system. A statistic that resonated with me as an engineering major, as a female engineering major, was that 1 in 5 engineering students in the United States are women. So this adversity to overcome in getting that female perspective in policy decisions is also apparent. So here's my solution. I'd like to create an organization called Tap into Water. It would address those three interconnected issues of the government, the utility, and the public, and address those levels of miscommunication through 3 tiers, through research, advocacy, and education. To begin with, I would like to research the water systems within my state and produce a report on the state of water quality in West Virginia. As you could see, there are very few statistics that I provided on water quality within my state, and that's because few exists. The information was within the state agencies of the EPA and the Office of Environmental Health. However, they aren't publicly available in which people can understand it. So by working in coordination with them, I hope to produce a report that can sort of raise awareness for this and bring this idea to light. My next solution is using that research to support me through advocacy. On campus, I'm involved with an organization called Students Advocating for Legislative Action. This is an organization where we go to the state capitol and we present issues that we find relevant of the year. And by working with them to get water on the agenda, we can further raise awareness on this issue. I also would like to work with students on campus to have a social media campaign to further reach out to youth. The next level of education is on the more tangible side of things. It's education. It's truly targeting the public where these communities are impacted. So I would like to create a traveling one-day workshop for 7th and 9th graders in West Virginia where we would go to their schools and community centers and present information and use an educational toolkit that can be universally used in these rural communities. Through partnerships with Engineers Without Borders on campus, the Office of Environmental Health Services, and the Environmental Protection Agency, I believe this can be possible. To build on that workshop, the curriculum and themes that would be prevalent would include testing their water at home, promoting sustainability within their communities and schools, and truly realizing the value of water. And finally, a portion of this workshop will be targeted solely at female youth to work on empowerment to get them interested in the STEM fields, to try to attack that statistic of 1 in 5 engineering students of women, to try to break that gap. So to build further on the female empowerment side of things, one of my longer term goals is to work with my university to create an academic scholarship for females entering STEM fields that relate directly to water conservation and water quality. By providing this female perspective through STEM fields into water policy, I believe we can have a more balanced approach in finding a solution that can truly help these West Virginia communities. So as a result of the solution I created, I have my mission. Through education and advocacy, we can strive to empower West Virginian communities by increasing public awareness on the value of water to cultivate an open dialogue about resource inequities and sustainable water policy. My overall vision for my solution is we envision a world where the innate human right to water is realized by all communities as the foundation for health, sustainable economies, and equality. Some challenges, the key challenges that I believe I'll have to overcome are establishing credibility to pursue this cause. As I'm approaching it from so many different levels, I will need to establish professional connections to be able to even begin working on this. So with my connections from my internship last summer, I hope to get my foot in the door to begin research, which will then support me through my advocacy project and implementing an educational solution. The lack of statistical data and public information is concerning. It does not provide support, but again, by doing that research myself and pushing to have it done, I believe that that will help establish credibility as well. And another difficulty in establishing credibility would be that of funding. By applying for grants and working with my university and presenting as I am to you today to other organizations, I believe I can get people on board with my project and receive the funding I need to begin it. So the project outcomes I'd like to see in the long run are seeing rural communities be empowered to develop as their resource inequities are reduced. I would like to see communities value the resource of water and see them inspired to engage in civic action. I would like to also see females be empowered and prepared to reduce the gender gap through education in STEM fields. And finally, I would like to see families and communities strengthen and become lifelong learners through the desire of education. In the short term, I would like to create an open dialogue on those communities that are impacted, generate awareness through the value of water through advocacy, increase enthusiasm for the STEM fields related to public policy through youth and females, and develop trust and respect among the rural communities for the government so we can work toward finding a solution together. My timeline for my plan, as you can see, it spans about a year. This summer, I would like to begin by meeting with state agencies, making sure those connections are established so I can begin my research. I'd also like to connect with advocacy groups to get their perspective on how I'm approaching this topic. This fall, when I'm at school, I'd like to actually produce this research, which would then support me as I continue through the next year. I'd like to acquire a team, so by creating Tap into Water student organization, I can get the manpower I need to begin working on these educational workshops throughout my state. So developing curriculum, creating promotional materials, that's very important in going forward into the spring, where I would actually like to implement my pilot program of this workshop. We would then, as an organization, begin lobbying at the Capitol for water issues along with the students advocating for legislative action. And I would begin meeting with my university for the scholarship that the organization would like to provide. And finally, next summer, I would like to continue expanding outreach, growing as an organization, and try to finalize that scholarship for females in STEM. And ultimately, a long-term goal would be evolving into a 501c3 organization. So in addressing an issue that is so broad and addressing it from so many different levels, it's really important that I'm able to define what I see as success in going forward. So ideally, you can see my levels of success truly reflect that of research, education, and advocacy. So by producing a practical and informative report on West Virginia water is the first step to success. Finally, launching the advocacy campaign in the spring of 2017, and evolving into a nonprofit organization where workshops frequent rural West Virginia communities. So thank you so much. If you all have any questions at this time, I'd be glad to answer.
Have you, like going through the process, have you looked into talking to any of your professors on campus that may be doing similar work? You know, especially in the environmental department, people are doing research into environmental contamination stuff, because I found that to be very useful in terms of
So the advisor for Engineers Without Borders is one of the environmental engineering professors, so I've reached out to him, and once I get back on campus, I'm going to meet with him to talk more about that. I haven't thought about reaching out to research students, which is a great idea, and I definitely want to look into that. Yes?
I have two things, question and maybe a comment with a question built in it somewhere. First thing is about your team, you Tap into Water. Is your envisioning this as a formal student group that will be able to get resources from the university?
Yes, so that's what I'd like to see it start as, is creating it as a student organization and eventually evolving into its own organization, sort of separate from the university, but could still be somewhat affiliated.
You're heavily involved in student governance already, so you obviously know how to do that. Get that do-re-mi, so that's exciting. I love the project. I think it's really important. It's ambitious, which is wonderful as well. I wonder if there's a bit of a distraction with the interest in fixing the gender ratio in STEM, because of course you're going to be a great role model for young girls all over the state going around doing this thing, but it might be just a little bit of mission creep in terms of the message that you're trying to get across about water, which is so essential. And I even noticed in your mission statement you didn't say anything about the gender gap in STEM. And so it might be something that could evolve out of this, or is a different project. But I would caution you to try to not
Yeah, so I was a little concerned about like seeing those as two separate issues, but by introducing them as an issue that's truly intertwined, I think I can bring that, like open up that dialogue. My main target is water as a whole, and I think that females in STEM can provide input on that. But I think also like the academic scholarship for females in STEM would be more of a long-term goal as the organization develops and we like establish credibility. Yes.
So you talked a little about how you would get your funding. Do you know how much funding you would need?
Not at this point. I think since I don't even know the quantitative number of like communities that are truly impacted by this, it's just been sort of what we've seen at work last summer. Until I have that research, I couldn't give you a formal number. Yes.
Why did you want to specifically target 17 educators?
So, yeah, I was wondering about that for a bit, and I realized I wanted to get students while they're in middle school and high school. I originally thought, oh, maybe when they're later in high school because of like seeking college degrees, but I think truly getting students interested at 7th grade for science courses, because they have accelerated programs in West Virginia once they start into 8th grade. And then in 9th grade, once you start into 10th grade, they have accelerated science programs. So I want to get them interested prior to those opportunities. Yes.
So, once you have engaged the community and educated them that there's a problem, some kids only test tubes, so they live with my water problem. What is the mechanism into which you can steer them where they can get involved, where they can talk to their utilities, where they can talk to their local governments? So you get them all impassioned. What do you do with that then?
So I think a lot of getting them impassioned is also sort of breaking down that distrust of the government. In these communities, there's this idea that the government is out to get them, or any sort of interference or involvement could be bad. So when they actually see that this is a problem and that the government can actually help them, I think they'd be more willing to let the government and larger water operations come in and help these smaller communities improve their water quality.
Teaching or becoming a role model in STEM education in a local community or I think you are doing a great job when you talk about building credibility. I think you have a lot already, and I'd love to see you be in a place where you can attract particularly more women into STEM, but lots of people. And water is a great way to start the conversation. I think you'd be great at that.
Oh, thank you. Wait, is that a question or? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you so much, though. So with like Engineers Without Borders, they do go into like schools already and do lessons, but they're more like the broader idea of engineering. So even I think there's this organization called the Society of Women Engineers. It's called SWE, and by bringing them in too, that could bring more female role models to those communities in like the teaching side of things. So if there's no more questions, thank you so much.